Hello! Welcome back to the studio. Today I'm thrilled to be finally starting my newest video series where I'm going to be sharing with you how I build a custom watercolor palette. This is probably the most requested or frequently asked question both on my videos, on my blog, and in person when I'm teaching classes. Is artists will ask me what watercolor paints they should buy. And I always find this a very difficult question to answer. I don't find it difficult because I don't know which colors I prefer. I could easily give you a list of my top 3, my top 6, my top 12, or even my top 24 watercolor paints. But I wouldn't suggest to anyone to go run out and buy those because everybody is different. So there are colors that I love that other people might not love, depending on what their personal preferences are or even what they're painting. It's also not useful for me to suggest only the colors that I use because many other artists already have some watercolors in their collection that might be very similar. So even though I love, for example, a phthalo turquoise, a PB16, I could suggest that, but a lot of people will already have a phthalo blue in their collection. If you already have a phthalo blue, which is very similar, there's very little point in you buying a phthalo turquoise. That money could probably be better spent elsewhere. I will be splitting this series into a number of videos, each with accompanying blog posts. So in this first video, I'll be focusing on choosing a watercolor palette. That is a box or container for holding your selection of watercolors. In future videos, I will address testing your existing watercolors or samples from brands, selecting a primary triad, secondary and complementary colors, dark colors, earth tones, and special colors. I'm aiming to make this series as accessible and friendly to everyone as possible. So whether you are an absolute beginner artist who's never touched watercolor before and you're just trying to get your first set built up, starting on the right foot, or whether you are an intermediate artist who's been working with pre-made sets of student or even professional watercolor paint and you'd like to build your own custom set, or perhaps even if you are a professional artist who would like to shift to a more customized palette for travel or just for everyday use, I hope that these strategies that I'm going to share in the upcoming videos are going to help you build a useful mixing palette that you can use for your paintings. If you're new here, my name is Lee Angold and I'm a botanical and natural science illustrator in Kitchener-Waterloo, Canada. On this channel, I share watercolor techniques and tips and some insights into my daily life as an illustrator. If this is content that you're interested in, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I switched to this tighter framing on this shot so that hopefully you can see some more of the watercolor palettes that I suggest. Now, of course, if you are always going to be painting in the studio, there's no need to bother with a palette box at all. For my studio paintings, I often mix on ceramic plates. I'll leave a link up above to my 3-minute tip on mixing on ceramic. You can just get a plate, a ceramic plate at the thrift store like this, squeeze your paints onto the outside, and just use that as a palette. However, one of the beauties of watercolor, in my opinion, is how wonderful it is for being portable. Not only is it a very high pigment load, so you can pack a lot of paint in a small space, but it's infinitely rewettable, so you can just pack a little box and it's there for you forever whenever you want to paint, which is really rare with most media. So I would really recommend that you at least give yourself the option of carrying your watercolors out, painting in plein air, urban sketching, or just having paint with you when you travel. In this series, I'll be focusing on small to medium portable. Over on the end here, I have my Atlantis palette. I'll leave a link down below to the blog post where I discuss what I initially filled this with. That has evolved a little, but I've been using this palette almost exclusively for the past 8 to 9 months. This holds 25 watercolors, the way that I've crammed them in here. Originally this was made to hold 24 half pans or 12 full pans, although you can squeeze a few more, and then I managed to squeeze some more in the middle. This is more colors than anybody really ever needs. I definitely don't use this many colors on a regular basis, but you can see that even with 25 colors, this is still a fairly compact set. I'll leave a link up in the iCards to my everyday carry art kit, which is what this pretty rainbow tin was, a special edition by Schminke, but you can get a very similar tin. It won't have the pretty rainbows. You can get it in white, black, or a number of solid colors, very affordably on Amazon. I'll leave a link down below if you're interested in getting a tin like this one to build your watercolor palette in. Over on the opposite end, we have some little teeny tiny watercolor palettes. This is a bijou box, which I got from Cornelison's. Again, I'll leave the link down below. A little tiny box like this is definitely very cute, and this tiny little box is sold as an 8-pan set, but it can easily hold up to 12 standard watercolor pans. So that's what I've done here. Now the only downside when you're using these little teeny tiny tins is if you want to mix in the lid, there's very little mixing space, so you'll probably end up carrying around a separate mixing surface, which means that even though your watercolor tin is very teeny tiny, you probably end up carrying around nearly as much as you would with a larger set. So just keep that in mind, but definitely 12 colors is plenty. Here I have a little cheapy upcycled palette. This is my Challenger palette. Again, I'll leave a link down below to where I went through the colors that I keep in here. Oh, and this is falling apart a little. But I just enameled the top and used some magnets on the bottom. And once again, you could fit up to 9 full pans or a lot of half pans in this little gift card tin. So you can get creative. This is a little gift card tin. Here's a watercolor pencil tin, which, you know, if I were to remove the watercolor pencils in here, I could just use this as a tin for holding watercolor pans in. And then just buy empty watercolor pans on Amazon. Again, I'll leave a link down below, and fill those. Finally, this is the palette that I'm going to be filling for this series. So I've had a lot of fun working out of this Atlantis palette for the past several months, but honestly, it's a little excessive for day-to-day use. Even though it fits nicely in my purse, I really don't need this many colors on a regular basis. So I wanted to try something more compact, especially because I'm traveling to Australia at the end of this month, and so I figured why not take the opportunity to build a somewhat more limited palette. The pack's a little smaller and will be perfect for taking with me when I travel. So I got this little enameled metal box. It's a heavier enamel than these lighter tins. It's basically the big brother of this little bijou box. Inside, it's got two flaps. I often remove this second flap, but in this case I'm leaving it just for now, just to try mixing on this flat mixing surface. And like the bijou box, it's got these little dividers. Now, this was sold as a 16 half pan set, so you've got 16 little openings in between these dividers here. But as it turns out, these little dividers you can fold down, and then I'll be able to fit in, instead of fitting in 16 half pans, I'll be able to fit in 15 pans, but it'll be 12 full pans and 3 half pans after I'm done pulling down these dividers, and I'll have pans in all 3 rows. I hope that you're as excited about this new palette building series as I am. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so that you'll see the next installments. Later this week, I'll be posting a color swatching video where I swatch some colors to discover what are my favorite paint properties and help me build up my palette. I'd also like to hear from you down in the comments below if you are joining in and building your own palette. What palette boxes are you using, or what colors are you most interested in adding to your palette? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you later this week. Bye-bye.